Well, the CMS final regs were published, I believe, April 4th. Now it's up to the carriers to interpret that 1,300-page document and decide how exactly does that impact them in terms of their policies and their procedures. But expect to see the cost of doing business going up because the agents won't have as many expenses paid for by others, despite they'll get additional revenue, from the CMS regulation, and expect the benefits to come down on Medicare Advantage. This is going to be the busiest year ever for agents, and they're going to need tools. They're going to need the ability to work with their clients to solve for these needs, and that's where I think SMS is uniquely positioned.
Hey everybody, Dan Trumbley here, Director of Communications and Creative Services for Senior Market Sales. I'm here with Dwane McFerrin, our Senior Vice President of Med Solutions. And we're here just to have a conversation about a lot of the things that are going on in the industry right now, particularly with the Medicare regulations. A lot going on, a lot of people wondering how these new changes are going to impact their business and their clients. We have the CMS regs that just were passed. Also, the Inflation Reduction Act that maybe people aren't talking about as much, but maybe has just as big of an impact on the industry. So we're going to shed some light on some of those things for agents and kind of get into maybe some of the questions that they might have, and we want to try to give them answers.
I've been in the industry now, Dan, for over 40 years, and this is as wild and disruptive of a period as I recall in the industry. So it's extremely important for agents and agencies to be aware of the changes that are underway, the impact that will have on running business, and also the impact on your clients that they'll face this fall.
Yeah, and you and SMS have really been on the front lines, so to speak, with all of this stuff, trying to advocate for agents. You guys have been very plugged in to what's going on in Washington. So I think you have a lot of insights to be able to share with people.
We've been really fortunate, right? We've spent years in Washington working with NABIP, formerly NAHU, and becoming known within the industry as being a real supporter of agents and brokers. And so fortunately, we have some influence and people listen to us. And so I've had the opportunity to meet with CMS, with House Ways and Means, key staffer, elected officials, and even the OMB before the final regs were published by CMS. And so we've been able to have those conversations and really tell our story. Because so much, especially in the CMS regulations that came out, it was clear there wasn't a good understanding of what does an FMO do, what does an agency do, and what's the difference between that and an agent. And so we've been telling our story, and I think we told our story pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's maybe get into a few of these things. Maybe we can start with the CMS regulations and just kind of dig into that a little bit. So probably a question that we're getting a lot from agents, a lot of agents are asking is, when are we going to know how agents and agencies are going to be affected by all this?
Well, the CMS final regs were published, I believe, April 4th. Now it's up to the carriers to interpret that 1,300-page document and decide how exactly does that impact them in terms of their policies and their procedures. So we'll know more probably by the second week of May on how carriers are interpreting it. They have to file their products by June 4th. So this is a big factor, is how do people get paid? What expenses do they incur? So it's a little more clear on the agent side than it would be, say, on the FMO or on the MGA side on how carriers are going to implement it. But we know one thing. We know that the cost of doing business is going to go up for agents, because fees like HRAs or maybe AHIP fees or even appointment fees could be charged to the agent. So while they get an increase in compensation of $100 for new and $50 for replacement, what's not clear yet are what are the expenses that the agent will incur that they'll have to use that extra revenue to offset. So we know that agents are affected, and I think the basis of the CMS regs was really all about making sure that there wasn't undue influence, that a carrier paying an agent more, for example, perhaps through other methods like a fee, would perhaps steer them to representing one carrier versus the other. So I think the noble goal of CMS was to create a level playing field. I think it's hard to argue with that intent. The other factor would be is FMOs and how FMOs are included or excluded. And there was page 591 and 592. I can't believe I would quote a page number, but out
500 pages in.
Yeah, out of a 1,300 page document, right? The page 591 and 592 explicitly excludes FMOs from the regulations governing this whole steerage and the commission payments. So our lobbying must have worked because the proposal went from $31 to $100. So agents got more as a result of all the lobbying, really explaining the role of the agent and the support that's provided by the FMO, resulted in a higher amount. And now we have the question of how do carriers interpret the FMO, the admin fee, if you will. So an admin fee is not the same as an override. So it's more of a fee that's paid to the FMOs for all of the variable costs that the carrier would incur. And what they've done essentially is they've contracted with an FMO or an MGA to perform those duties, whether that's commission payment, or it could be the contracting or the training or the recruiting, the types of activities, the technology that an FMO would provide. And so how that gets accomplished remains to be seen. We will know soon on how FMOs would occur, but things that you see out on social media are really unfortunate because in some cases people are making statements that are really, it hasn't been finalized. And so until we really know how those carriers are handling those situations, any proclamations are really premature.
Yeah, and so you mentioned a number of things there, 1,300 pages, a lot of nuances, and really a lot still unknown as far as how these regulations as they're written are actually going to get implemented in reality. So agents see a $100 per app raise, but it may not be quite that simple as far as how it actually shakes out in reality. So a lot still to kind of unpack there.
Agree. There's the whole idea of what expenses will an agent now incur and things that perhaps they received as a free service they may be charged for, and getting all that laid out. It will be well known before the AEP begins for 2025. But this summer months will be very interesting because carriers have to develop product. They have to make assumptions on how they're going to operate. And one concern that I have on the CMS regs, when they increase the agent compensation by $100 for a new enrollment and $50 for a renewal or replacement, they did it on Part D also. And one worry, and we'll find out soon enough, is how many Part D plans will be fully commissionable? Can a carrier really support that type of structure? And the way the CMS regs are written, it's either 0 commission or 100% commission. There's nowhere in between. And so that's a big question mark for an agent is, will they be doing business for Part D where in many cases maybe they don't get paid? And that would be an unfortunate outcome of this regulation.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act, so maybe we can talk a little bit about that because that's going to have some pretty major impacts this year and next year as well. So what would you say was kind of the intent of the Inflation Reduction Act as it was passed?
You know, there was a statistic from KFF or Kaiser Family Foundation, kff.org, that you may want to look up and just do a search on Inflation Reduction Act, and an agent or broker or an agency, they can see some of the statistics that are out there. But I found it interesting that I think it was in the last 10 years, around 6 million seniors faced more than $2,000 out of pocket for their drug costs in a single year. And so those 6 million people are really going to benefit from the Inflation Reduction Act because it's going to put a cap of $2,000 on their out-of-pocket costs. But with anything, the carrier has to now absorb that liability. And so there may be tens of millions of Americans that are now facing the impact of that regulation or the Inflation Reduction Act, which is really legislation. They're going to have to cover that. And so we're hearing from carriers that we could see the benchmark premium for, say, a basic plan go up by at least 50%, maybe more, could be double. And it's possible that a Medicare supplement premium may equal a Part D premium in 2025, which will be a shock to seniors, especially in rural areas where they don't have even the Medicare Advantages as an option. So they're in September, when the ANOC letters come out to consumers, they may be facing some difficult choices. I expect there to be more shopping this year than ever before, because simply the drug costs, if you're on a Medicare supplement and a standalone Part D, you'll look at that ANOC letter and say, wow, can I really afford this? Maybe I better shop around. Maybe there's a better Part D plan for me. For those that are on a Medicare Advantage plan, Part D affects that too. And so the Inflation Reduction Act will have an impact on those plans. So I'm expecting to see a drawdown on extra benefits. Maybe instead of a $5,000 dental, maybe it's only a $1,000 dental. There's more levers, if you will, on Medicare Advantage where the carrier can absorb some of the impact. But we should expect that extra benefits will be much more watered down than they have been. It's up till now, every year, it seemed like it was getting better and better and better, to the point where agents were merchandising as opposed to selling insurance. And so I think a lot will return back to, why do you buy insurance? For the catastrophic impact of health, changes to your health. But expect to see the cost of doing business going up because the agents won't have as many expenses paid for by others, despite they'll get additional revenue, from the CMS regulation, and expect the benefits to come down on Medicare Advantage. I think we'll be at a tipping point where 2024 would be the best products that you could ever buy. 2025 will be a little more return to reality, that some of that wasn't sustained, because the carriers also didn't get as much reimbursement as they were seeking. So you have a couple of headwinds. You have CMS regulations, you have the Inflation Reduction Act, and then you have the reimbursement rates that the carriers were hoping for more. We do have a heightened morbidity, and the carriers were able to demonstrate that to CMS, but they didn't get the extra reimbursement that they were hoping for. So I do expect watered down benefits for 2025. So as a result, this is going to be the busiest year ever for agents, and they're going to need tools. They're going to need the ability to work with their clients to solve for these needs. And that's where I think SMS is uniquely positioned.
So maybe talk about that a little bit. What are some of the things that, with all these changes coming, and you mentioned it's going to be the busiest year ever for agents, and we already know AEPs already can be overwhelming for a lot of agents trying to keep up with all their clients. So what kind of tools should agents be looking for to help them?
Well, when there's a formulary change, if drugs aren't covered, how do you find your clients? Last year we had an example like an insulin drug, Levemir, was off of a formulary. Well, how many of your clients are on that drug? How can you quickly get to that? And that's something that SMS technology provides. We could see network disruptions. Up till now, we've always heard 64,000 pharmacies are in a network, but that could be, we see a restriction on the number of preferred pharmacies that would be in a network. So I do expect change, not just premium, but benefit changes. So you need tools, you need technology. So one of the things that SMS has is we have an in-house pharmacist. I'm pretty confident we're the only FMO that has an in-house pharmacist that can help agents solve challenging problems. Is the client eligible for any kind of support from, say, a manufacturer? Is it a Part B or is it a Part D drug? Well, what if I split a drug? Is there another drug that would serve the same purpose? An agent can't provide medical advice, but they can contact our pharmacist who could say, here's some of the options that your clients might want to consider, and have your client talk to their doctor or their pharmacist about these solutions. So that's something that our in-house pharmacist can assist, and I think that alone makes us unique. We've also introduced self-service features. So what's the biggest time bandit in an AEP for an agent? It is the time it takes to collect drugs and then enter them into a system. So no matter what system you're using, that's time. And we've solved for that time by creating a self-service feature where an email can go to your clients. It's time to update your drugs, have the clients update the drugs themselves. And then we send reminders if they don't do it. And so what we're finding is more than half of our Part D clients are able to do that themselves. And what a time saver for an agent. And that will be even more important this year with all of the disruption, is being able to send 1,000 emails at once to all of your clients saying it's time to do an update, and then give them regular updates to where you get to where you have 50, 60% or more of your clients that have done the self-service feature of Lead Advantage Pro.
Yeah, and we rolled that out last AEP, and it was a real game changer for a number of our agents, particularly those with, getting into the thousands of agents and their clients in their book of business. Being able to have them self-serve on a lot of that stuff was huge.
And you go beyond self-service to self-enroll. So with Medicare Insurance Direct, we have features to where a client can self-enroll with the agent getting production credit, because the agent's unique writing number is embedded in a link that's sent to a client. So a client can go from self-service to self-enrollment, and the agent can spend their time focusing on Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement, and not necessarily the Part D. So we have a lot of our agents leveraging our tools to save valuable time in the busiest time of the year during AEP. So a couple of other features that really make Lead Advantage Pro so special is the ability to represent not just Medicare Advantage, but Medicare Supplement. Other platforms out there only do the Advantage. But we're providing single sign-on on Medicare Supplement, which means when you're on our platform and you say, okay, I've identified the carrier I want to enroll my client in, and then you go to that carrier's website and you have to re-enter all the information, including your password, which is hard to remember. With single sign-on, we carry all that data over. So now you're just a speed of play. You save time and keystrokes, and it's going to just be more natural. So whether you're selling by phone or you're selling in person, time really matters. And so we've been able to solve for that. Dan, one of the other features about Lead Advantage Pro is the fact that there's multiple ways for a client to enroll. And we actually hold the trademark to the phrase call, click, mail, or meet, doing business with the customer the way the customer wants to do business. And so we have multiple enrollment methods. We actually have 5. So you might want to ask, wherever your contract is, if it's not with SMS, how many enrollment methods do they support? Generally, just one. But 5, if you will, enrollment methods really puts an agent in a unique position to do business with a customer long distance, face-to-face, over the phone, via email. There's lots of ways that we can do business with an agent, and agents that use Lead Advantage Pro find the multiple enrollment methods a real advantage. We also allow you to download your data. And it's kind of crazy, but some systems out there, they actually own the data, and you have to pay money to move your data out of their system into another platform. You have the ability to import your data into our system at no cost. You have the ability to export your data from our system with no cost, something that you think you could take for granted, but it's really not the case in all situations. One other feature, and the last one we could talk about with the Lead Advantage Pro, is really the pharmacy lookup. We have the ability to support multiple pharmacy types, including online pharmacy. And so we get very particular. And even with the provider lookup, our tool goes in and says, what location does that provider are they in network? So a provider might be working with several health systems, and one location may be in network and one location is out of network, but our systems break that down. And you can tell Mrs. Jones, if you go to see the doctor on 3rd Street, you're in network. But if you go on L, it won't be in network. And helping that client really understand how they can maximize the benefit of the plan is something, again, uniquely responsible or a part of Senior Market Sales Lead Advantage Pro system.
So bottom line is there's a lot of really incredible tools, features available to agents to help them be more efficient. And that's going to be more important than ever this year. It's really kind of evaluation time, I think, for everybody right now. Probably it sounds like with the disruption we expect in the industry this year, it's kind of looking at your business and seeing, do I need to change, or is this an opportunity, or is this a threat? And how am I going to adapt my business to really win? And do I have the right partner and the right tools in my corner to help me?
Exactly right. Senior market sales has the history of being an innovator. We were doing technology way before the pandemic, before everyone kind of jumped on the bandwagon. We introduced the first scope of appointment form as an example. We did the first iPad enrollment. So we've constantly been innovating, and many times a vendor may try to reverse engineer or copy what we've done, but we have been a technology leader. And this year, of all years, is where there's the most disruption. And we'd like you to do business with Senior Market Sales. If you are doing business with us, we very much appreciate it. But if there's a time for you to reconsider and consider looking for the right tools to help you in the year of the most disruption, you'll find that with Senior Market Sales. Dan, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dwane. I think shared a lot of great expertise and a lot of insight, and hopefully a lot of information that's going to help agents get some answers here as we go. And we'll have to, do this again probably as we learn more throughout the year. We'll bring some more information to the field.
Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.